So, Jonathan, pleasure to meet you.
And you?
So, Jonathan here runs Eco Cars on Orkney, and it's not just Orkney based. It's Orkney based, but it works across the country. So, anyone, anywhere in the UK interested in an electric car, this is the guy to speak to, Jonathan Porterfield.
Yeah.
So, Jonathan, which do you prefer?
I don't mind. People call me JP as well.
JP?
So I don't mind JP.
How did you get into this game? How did you get into eco cars?
I used to sell. I've been dealing as a car dealer, for want of a better word, since 2004, and we specialise just in LPG, liquid petroleum gas, or hybrid cars. So I didn't want to do mainstream petrol and diesels. And that worked well for a few years, up to 2009. And I sold a lot of LPG vehicles down to London, because at the time they were exempt from the daily congestion charge.
Okay.
So for businesses, they were saving like £2,500 a year for van drivers to go in and out of central London. So that's significant. But that ended in 2009. And all the rules changed, and it had to be under a certain CO2, I think under 100 grams CO2.
Right.
Whether it was petrol or diesel, which was ridiculous looking back. So overnight, basically the inquiries and the leads for LPG vehicles, particularly vans, stopped. Now in 2010, I went down to a show at Battersea, and I can't remember the name of the show, but it was basically displaying all the new electric vehicles. So it was a Peugeot Ion, Vauxhall were there with the Ampera,
yeah,
with the Chevrolet Volt,
yeah,
and the Nissan Leaf, just before it was released in 2011, so it was there, it was latter half 2010. So I had to go in all the electric cars, and the Nissan Leaf just blew me away. Right. We went around this test track, actually drive them around Battersea Power Station, and I got out there, eyes wide open, going, oh my word, this is definitely the future.
Right, okay.
This is what we're going to do, this is the next thing.
You must have been one of the first people in the country to drive on that.
Well, it was a display open to the public.
Yeah.
And you had to book a slot, just the normal things, and I was just so convinced that it just made so much sense, the electric vehicles. So I came home, and about 6 months later when they were for sale, I had a Lotus Elise at the time.
Right, okay.
My wife had a smart Roadster. So we both like our cars. And my Lotus Elise, I'll have to say, was my midlife crisis car. It's my dream car.
Yeah.
Great car. I did some track events, loved it. I sold my Lotus Elise and we sold the smart Roadster to buy my first Nissan Leaf. £23,000 it was back in 2011. My mates thought I was bonkers. But that was the first Leaf, and after that we lived with it and we just thought this is what we're going to concentrate on. So that's when I went from hybrids and LPG just to pure electric as a business.
Okay. And you just thought, because you had enjoyed it so much, you thought there's definitely a market here for electric cars. And did you find you had to push them a lot personally, or was it easy enough to direct people to other marketing sources? That kind of, did you have to do a lot of marketing from your own perspective?
I did, because my website, I already used videos to show off LPG and hybrid cars. And when I bought my first Leaf off Nissan Direct and didn't get any discount, paid virtually asking price, their knowledge of the product they had was just so shallow. They just didn't know all the stuff I already knew. And that's only because I'd done the internet thing and read up about it and really got into it. So then I thought, well, okay, I'm not a Nissan franchise dealer, but there's a market there for an independent selling new or used in the future. So if I start promoting them now and build up a catalogue of videos and get some history behind you to satisfy customers, in years to come people can say, well, there's a chap who's independent, he's cheaper than a franchise dealer, but oh my word, he knows more than franchise dealers. So that's the sort of angle I was coming from, is that I eat, breathe and live electric vehicles.
And I can vouch for that, having gone into some dealerships in the past.
Yeah.
And in fact, the place I bought my pre-owned Leaf from, which is a few years ago, when I went in there, the guy who was actually the electric EV specialist wasn't in that day, but I was told no uncertain terms by them that they'd actually recruited a customer who come in asking about a Leaf, who knew more about them than everybody there in the dealership.
Yeah.
So I can well believe that, because the thing is, if your motivation is there, if you have an interest in EVs in the first place,
yes,
then the likelihood is we will kind of research them a little bit.
Yeah.
And, but to have the opportunity to drive one, that must have been quite impressive. First generation Leaf.
Yeah.
So, in terms of how the Leaf has gone, second generation.
Yeah.
Did you see an increase in sales from the first generation?
I think like any new product, people just sort of held back to see how long the battery life would last. Yeah. Programs such as Top Gear, I was a fan of Top Gear as an entertainment show, but that classic episode of the Leaf that they deliberately ran dry the night before, they deliberately lost some range, and then because they deliberately wanted to run out and push it into Lincoln Town Centre. Yeah, something else I should make clear here, my wife is from Lincolnshire, and Lincolnshire is terrible for EV infrastructure. Yeah, it is absolutely abysmal. And Lincoln, it's a disgrace they don't have any rapid charging infrastructure still to this day. It's a personal bugbear because I have to go up to that neck of the woods quite often. Go out of my way. But that is stuck in people's heads. So over time, people have seen the take up, they've seen more EVs around, and that then causes people to then make inquiries, think about it, test drive it, still think about it. So it takes time. You can't rush anyone to make this almost leap of faith into an EV, which I don't mind doing. So I've had some customers that I've been talking to. One was for 2 years. Once a month, an email, a phone call, a test drive, and I'll think about it, and then eventually they'll come round and do it. And then they become the biggest advocates.
Yes,
as well. The other interesting thing is I've been on Orkney 4 years, and when we first came here 4 years ago, I had a Kia Sorento V6 4x4 and a trailer. The Kia was running on LPG vehicles. Great towing vehicle. I towed my electric vehicles up to Orkney, and then within 6-8 months, the infrastructure improved with rapid chargers. Thanks in part, thanks probably to ecotricity being anything. The infrastructure improved so much that I sold the 4x4 and I sold my trailer, and then I just started driving EVs from Leicestershire, London, Bristol, South East, all the way up to Aberdeen. And then the subsequent another 12 months from Glasgow all the way up the A9, the route you took and you bike, improved rapid charging wise. So I have no need to have a Kia 4x4 and a trailer, a Kia Sorento tow vehicle. I just drive them up, and I've now done the trip 34 times.
I was just going to say, I mean, I've just done my vintage on the roads. I'm going to the top of Shetland, but it's all part of the course for you. It's a regular thing for you, isn't it?
And it's like any trip, I think, in any car that any of us do. It becomes the norm. So when I first did it, it seemed like a marathon effort that was just bonkers. Yeah. And now, I'll be honest, you just get your mind set to it, and you just settle in, and it doesn't seem such a big thing anymore.
So you took Dad to Exeter the other day, didn't you?
Yeah, to a friend of Robert Llewellyn's, a famous comedian.
Oh, okay, yep.
Yes, so I drove, it was 850 miles from here down to Exeter. And busted back, which wasn't a great experience. But and then of course 2 years ago, this month, me and Chris Ramsey did John O'Groats to Land's End.
That was my next question. So that's fine.
We spent 40 minutes at Land's End, and we turned around and went, "Should we go back then?" That was bonkers.
So you were the first people to do that trip in an electric car, weren't you? So there we go. First 2 EV.
Yes. First
people from bike. But he did it both ways. Cheated. And Chris Ramsey at the moment, of course, is doing.
Well, Chris is amazing, and people think that 800 miles in an EV is a long way. People think going to John O'Groats and back doing 1,700 miles is a long way. But Chris has gone to Mongolia.
As you do.
As you do. Mongolia. 10,000 miles in the Mongol Rally.
It's the EV equivalent of going walkabout.
Just amazing.
But he's taking his wife.
He's taking his wife.
Panda.
Who he's dressed as a panda. Don't go there. 30 kilowatt leaf, standard leaf, no extra batteries. He hasn't got an onboard generator. All he's done is heighten the suspension and some protection at the front of the car for any blocks and boulders. Removed the back seats to lose a bit of weight and fitted a roof where you sit. And he's doing great.
It's amazing. It's amazing to see it. See what he's doing.
Yeah.
See what and he's having a whale of a time.
And the other thing that people have asked is, well, where are you going to charge it? And my argument, along with Chris's, along with your argument, is that wherever there's a house or a building, there is a power source.
Yeah.
And you've got to stop at some point, either for a coffee or a sleep. So
it's always in the back of your mind. To me, always in the back of my mind. You're not worried about running out of power. You always think, well, if I do run out of power, I just need a power socket.
Yeah.
And there are a hell of a lot more power sockets around than there are petrol pumps.
Yeah.
So that thing people have about anxiety of running out of power. Well, I have to say I've never run out of power ever. I've come close. I did in fact once call a recovery truck simply because I didn't want to wait because I had my wife and on the side with us, so it was unfair to make them sit in the car while. But if I'd been on my own, I would have happily found a power socket to plug in. But I've never. Otherwise, it's been plain sailing.
And interestingly, in Scotland, there are now more electric car charge points than there are petrol stations.
Is that true?
Wow. So in all of Scotland, petrol stations are shutting down. So some remote places where you have to make sure you've got a full tank of petrol or diesel.
Yeah,
because if you've not, there's a high probability you run out because the petrol stations are shutting down.
And it's going to get, as 2040 approaches, it's going to become more and more of and even the likes of BP and Shell. BP, soon to be British Power maybe?
Yes.
British Petroleum?
Yeah.
Who knows? They're going to have to rebrand.
And was it Shell announced last week they're going to put rapid chargers in? I think it's great because
that's a great move.
They're seeing it as a business opportunity because they're going to make more money out of selling you a coffee whilst you wait 20 minutes than the profit they make out of a dozen cars filling their tanks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So they're not doing it for the love of EVs, they're doing it because it's good financial business sense because they're going to earn money. And I think that's what the key lies. Things like shopping areas, motorway service stations, put something in because it's a good business move. Sadly, it's not the environment people think of first and foremost, it's this. Yeah. And if that can be a financial incentive, then businesses will do it. And that's why it's taken off in Norway. So the tax incentives. Yeah. That's what's needed more. It's good to see that it's good economic sense.
Yeah. Well, it's all good. But anyway, pleasure to speak to you, John. Pleasure to catch up with you.
Good to see you. Safe trip back.
Thank you. And I'll be keeping an eye on you. Anyone who wants an EV, new or used, it's definitely the guy to talk to.
Yeah.
He knows, and I know, from other parties, he's a good bloke, and he goes through and do all the research and guide you through all the whole process. So if I'd known about Jonathan when I bought my car, I'd certainly gone through. So,
well, thank you, John, for the plug.
Cheers.